I'm going to ask you to like, subscribe, and share. And I got to get straight into this. Dr. Umar Johnson, I don't really know him. I don't really listen to him. But he crossed the line into my territory when he started talking about Africa. If you go to my site, you will see information on Africa, proving that I know exactly what is going on internationally. And I'm going to tell you this: Russia and China are the best things that has happened to Africa. They are the best thing that have happened to Africa. Russia has given the countries in the Sahel region military weapons to defend themselves from Islamic insurgents. He has given them weapons. The United States had the so-called United Nations peacekeeping force there, and they've been there for 20 years, and they have done nothing for the people. The people in Africa begged the United Nations to get out. Now that the United Nations have gotten out, these countries are getting rid of the Islamic insurgents. They are much better off. Now, he's talking about they should not trust Russia and China. Well, Russia and China together has given away $46 billion of debt owed to them by Africa. They wiped the papers clean. Russia is building a nuclear power plant in Burkina Faso so that the people will have energy now, so they can have energy and they won't be dependent. Russia is also building a gold processing plant so that Burkina Faso can process their own gold, where before they were sending raw gold out to France and they didn't know how much they were getting for it. They were getting ripped off. And on top of that, those gold companies were stealing their gold, not telling them how much they were taking. And they had tax-free contracts. They were ripping. Look, America and Europe was doing to Africa the exact same thing that they are doing to African people living in their country. America is systemically racist to the people who have fought and built this country, so you know they don't care about Africa. Now let's examine something else. Russia and China has never enslaved or colonized any part of Africa or any country in the world. Let me repeat that. Russia and China has never colonized any African nation. So let me ask you a question. Who would you trust? A country that has colonized and enslaved you and is guilty of systemic racism? Or would you trust a country that has never done this? The question is rhetorical because the answer is purely common sense. See, Russia is getting those Islamic insurgents out. China is building roads so that the countries in Africa can trade freely between each other. The people in Burkina Faso and other countries in Africa, the citizens there, are happy about the coups because those African leaders were selling out their people. Those African leaders were selling out their people. And I'm going to leave you numerous links to prove my point. You see, Umar got on this channel and all he did was ran his mouth, but he didn't have any substance. He presented no facts, just a lot of propaganda BS. I was shocked to listen to him run his mouth. Let me get straight to. Let me give you. I'm gonna give you these seven. I'm gonna give you these 7 or 8 things, and then I'm gonna leave you links to prove my point. The first thing I'm gonna say is this. China and Russia have collectively given $46 billion, have collectively forgiven $46 billion in African debt to them. While this was happening, President Biden offered Africa $400 million to accept same-sex marriage. And I bring this up because one thing about China and Russia is that they're not interfering in the way these countries want to run their countries. And then they are putting sanctions on these countries for not accepting same-sex marriages, and that is hurting the people of those countries who disagree with it. 3. The contracts Africa has signed with Russia and China will allow Africa to mine and refine their own gold and sell it on the open market themselves. Russia is building a nuclear power plant in Burkina Faso. China is building roads so that African countries can trade with each other, something Europe and America prevented them from doing. The Western World Banks prevented Africa from withdrawing money out of their own accounts, keeping the countries poor. If they needed X amount of dollars for their country's infrastructure, the World Banks could deny it and say that they wanted to use the money for something else. I mean, what business is it of what they use their money for? China and Russia aren't doing this. And the so-called United Nations peacekeeping force was causing instability in Africa for the purpose of exploitation. They were sent there to get rid of the insurgents, and they've been there for 20 years and haven't gotten rid of anybody. Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, the Sahel regions, they have been getting rid of the insurgents. And the people wanted the United Nations out of Burkina Faso, and they celebrate their leaders. And the people in Burkina Faso were running around waving Russian flags because Russia is selling to Africa weapons, military equipment that they can use to get the insurgents out on their own, and they're also training their soldiers to fight in a modern day war. Now, what was interesting, after all of this happened, and they are getting themselves together, all of a sudden, the United States gives Burkina Faso a bunch of trucks and a bunch of motorcycles. Now, my question is, who were they going to give these things to before Burkina Faso and them kicked France out and the United States out of Burkina Faso? Well, guess who they were going to get? My opinion, they was going to give it to the insurgents because those are the vehicles that the insurgents use. The insurgents use motorcycles and trucks. Now you're gonna tell me they just happened to have all these motorcycles and trucks just sitting around? No, because the insurgents are getting out. So now that, in my opinion, now that the insurgents are getting out, they're stuck with these NATO, with these things that the insurgents use. So now they're gonna play, oh yeah, hey, well let us help you, and we're gonna give you this. We're gonna give you these trucks and these motorcycles. Russia has given them tanks, um, tanks, rocket launchers, tanks, rocket launchers, vehicles to move men around. Russia's giving them military equipment that you can do something with. The United States is gonna give them some trucks and motorcycles, something that the insurgents would use. But I didn't see when they gave Burkina Faso these things. I didn't see any guns, any handheld rocket launchers, something that they could really use. I didn't see any of that. I just seen them giving Burkina Faso stuff that the insurgents would use to attack villages. But I'm going to leave links to a number of channels that will allow you to see exactly what's going on in the Sahel region. And those countries those countries that were overran, it were poor countries, very poor, and their leaders were rich. Were rich. When you see, I want you all to look at this, because then when you look at this, then you're going to know what Dr. Umar is all about. Peace. Like and subscribe. Talk to you later.